Let's go to this conversation now. The Centre for Development and Enterprise has called on the new Chief Justice Mandisa Maya to play an active role in reforming the Judicial Service Commission. The organisation says this will allow the best legal minds to be selected as judges. Now, the CDE has released a series of what it calls the Agenda 2024 series, and this is Action 4. Let's speak now to Bernstein from the Centre for Development and Enterprise of South Africa, who's joining us live now. And thank you so much for your time this evening. You say that while the judiciary has been largely independent, there are warning signs of trouble should the issue of the quality of judicial appointments not be addressed.
Absolutely. I think the JSC is a very important body in South Africa, and we tend to underplay how important it is. They have to interview and make recommendations to the president for judges, the essential third branch of government. And what's happened over the last decade and more is that interviews of leading scholars, leading legal practitioners have often been humiliating and totally inappropriate. And questions have been asked that are political rather than about an individual's legal judgment. So we're very concerned that increasingly, we are not getting the best of our legal practitioners available for the judiciary, and we are seeing this in the number of vacancies. The Constitutional Court, for example, has a vacancy, and last year there were interviews for judges for the court, and these had to be taken to the High Court, and the JSC had to back down and redo their interviews because they were not done fairly. Irrational deliberations has been one of the accusations about JSC interviews. So then they called for people to apply in April this year, and there weren't enough people. You have to nominate 4 people to the president for 1 vacancy. They've called for new interviews in October, and there are not enough applicants. This is a really bizarre and dangerous situation for the country. Becoming a Constitutional Court judge should be the apex of a legal career, and people are not wanting to apply.
And when it comes to that, let's stay with that point that you just made at the end there. When it comes to how some of the interviews have been conducted, and of course a lot has been said, and you've just, expressed your concerns as well, how much of a deterrent does this then, have when it comes to those who possibly could say, I'm willing, or I could potentially put my hand up, but now, looking at how things have been done, maybe I might not?
Well, there are a number of individual reports of leading people who are judges in one level of the court who tried to apply for the Supreme Court or the Constitutional Court, were treated so badly that they then didn't apply again. So we are seeing senior legal people, retired judges, and senior advocates starting to speak out about this phenomenon, that the JSC has not been managed properly, not been led by the Chief Justice in many occasions in a way that is conducive to objectively interviewing candidates and making sure that the country gets the best legal talent available for the judiciary.
So how does one who leads the JSC then strike a balance? Because in some cases, maybe they may say that I don't want to stifle the debate, and I certainly don't want to, get some of the JSC members themselves not to ask the burning questions, but at the same time, you say that this must be done with careful consideration. So how does, the one who heads this particular process strike a balance?
Well, we're suggesting 2 things. Firstly, the JSC has recently adopted criteria for the appointment of judges to be used in the interviews. And these are appropriate and objective criteria, and they need to be applied fairly and consistently, an important role for the chairman. Secondly, we're saying that the people who nominate the members of the JSC, which is Parliament, the President, legal bodies, they need to think very seriously about the kinds of people we want choosing the new judges for South Africa. So we're saying that Parliament as a whole has a responsibility, as do other nominating bodies. We are also calling for something that we did have in the interim constitution in the early years of democracy, which we think would be better suited to where South Africa is at now, which is a constitutional amendment that gives judges themselves a greater role in the JSC. At the moment, they're heavily outnumbered by political players on the JSC. We need some politicians, but we're saying it would be better to have more judges there who, after all, are watching lawyers every day in their courts and have a good sense of what it means to be a good judge and the kind of work ethic involved, the sort of legal excellence that's involved. And we need to stop the politicization of the JSC. And that's an important role for the chairman, not to curb free speech, but to make sure that the questions that are raised are about a candidate's legal judgments, about their legal career, about their work ethic as a lawyer. So we should allow free rein for appropriate questioning, not about all sorts of things that are extraneous to being a judge and the quality of your expertise to bring to such an august office.
I suppose what you're saying is also then, inevitably taking us then to look at the state of the judiciary. And one wonders, what role then does civil society, particularly those who are watching this particular space, then do or, play as a role when it comes into ensuring that, there are safeguards here, but also some of the concerns are addressed, but also, of course, the freedom to then continue to allow the judiciary to be independent.
Well, we're saying up until now, concerns about the JSC and its functioning have largely been left to legally oriented or constitutionally oriented NGOs and to the legal profession. We're trying to mainstream this. We're saying this should be a priority issue for the GNU. It should be a priority issue in government business discussions where they are talking about the criminal justice system, and the independent judiciary is very important in that respect. And we're saying that wider civil society should also not be taking the independence and excellence of our judiciary for granted. It's very important in a country like South Africa with a sophisticated economy dealing with massive corruption that we have both good and skilled and independent judges. And the process of interviewing and the fact that the JSC has been taken to the High Court a number of times and had to back down or settle or obey the court's instructions in terms of its procedures and fairness is remarkable for this kind of body. So we have to call, and that's why we're calling on the new Chief Justice, who starts this week, to take a more active role in chairing the JSC, and we've made a number of other practical recommendations to help JSC commissioners get more support to really dig into an individual's legal career, the judgments they've made or the cases that they have won or lost, and their written kind of contribution to the law. We need more support to the commissioners so that they can do proper research and not more superficial questions often that are inappropriate.
And I suppose as we end off our conversation there, we haven't even begun to talk about the issue of backlogs when it comes to the cases, the issue of resources, as you say, even for the courts themselves to have, sufficient researchers, and also the issue of equipment in some of the cases where recording